So next reading is probability concepts. Before we go into discussing probability concept, let's discuss what is probability. So probability is possibility of something happening or chance of something happening, and obviously there is a maximum of 100% chance for anything happening. So that means maximum probability can be 100% or 1. So probability will range from 0 to 1 or 0 to 100% because the maximum chance of anything happening is 100%. It cannot be more than 100%. Now question is that how do we calculate it? We calculate it based on the frequencies. So for example, or based on the data set available. So for example, if you are tossing a coin and if you have head and tail on it, then there are only two options, which is head and tail. These two options are known as sample space. Sample space is the complete list of options or the exhaustive list of options which can happen. So sample space in this case would be 2. That is, there are only two outcomes, head and tail. And then if I am testing the probability for head, then head will be my observation or for the variable for which I am testing the probability. So probability for this variable head appearing would be 1 divided by 2 because total sample space is 2 and head appears only once, so 1 divided by 2. Similarly for tail, 1 divided by 2. If I have a dice of 1 2 3 4 5 6 and if I want to measure probability of 4 coming up on the die, then total sample space is 6 and 4 appears only once. Frequency of 4 is 1. So I do 1 divided by 6 and that will be the probability of 4. And probability of 2 will also be 1 divided by 6. Probability of 6 would also be 1 divided by 6. And sum of all these probabilities should be 1. That is, if I take probability for all possible outcomes, that should sum up to 1 because maximum probability can be 1. There cannot be a number on a dice other than 1 2 3 4 5 6, and there cannot be a number there cannot be anything on this coin other than head and tail. So that means probability of head and probability of tail both combined should be 1 or 100%. Moving on, when we are measuring probability, there can be three types of probabilities or three approaches to measuring probability: empirical probability, a priori probability, and subjective probability. So empirical probability is the probability which is calculated based on past data. So if I look at the past data and based on what has happened in the past, if I try to forecast future, if based on what has happened in the past, I calculate probability, that is known as empirical probability. A priori probability is a futuristic probability or predictive probability. So this is the probability that what is the chance of something happening in future, or how will something or what is the chance for something or what is the possibility of something happening in future. This is a priori. So empirical and a priori. And obviously when you are predicting something, you predict it with some reasoning. So there is some formal reasoning or rationale involved. So if you use formal reasoning or rationale to calculate probability instead of just looking at the past data, then that is known as a priori probability. And then you can have third type, which is based on personal judgment. So if you are only using your personal judgment to find out, or you are based on your personal judgment, you are giving an estimate of the chances of something happening, that is known as subjective probability. That is, there is no formal reasoning for it. It is not being backed by past data. It is just a personal judgment. So these can be three types of probabilities. Remember names and remember their key characteristics. So if you are asked that a probability is being calculated on past data and then you are asked which type of probability is it, you should be able to identify it as empirical. If you are told a probability is being calculated with formal reasoning, then you should be able to identify it as a priori probability, and so on. So remember these. Now moving on, whenever we are calculating probability, there is something for which we are calculating probability. There is some variable involved. That variable is known as event. Also, for example, if I tell you that 1 2 3 4 5 6, there are 6 variables or 6 observations on a dice, then if I ask you to calculate probability for dice to be showing a number, dice to be coming up or the probability for 3 coming out on dice, then that probability of 3 coming out is known as an event. So this is an event happening, and so probability will be estimated for a particular event. So this 3 coming out on a dice is an event. This is known as event. And the quantity which is there, so for example, if I am talking about a stock return, then I can have a 5% return, I can have a 7% return, I can have a 10% return, and so on. So this quantity which is uncertain, for which I am doing all the measurements, and which is uncertain, for which I want to calculate probability, this quantity is known as variable or random variable. So random variable is uncertain quantity, for example return on stock, and event is that event for which I am calculating the probability. For example, if I say return is greater than 10%, this is an event. So if I calculate its probability, this is the probability of this particular event. And this return of 10% is the variable on which probability is being calculated. So these are some basic terminologies. And moving on, there are two types of events. When we say events, there are two types of events. There can be mutually exclusive events and non-mutually exclusive. Mutually exclusive events are those in which only one event can happen at a time. So for example, if I tell you that there is an event that return is greater than 10% and there is an event that return is less than 10%. So either return will be greater or return will be lesser. I cannot say that both of these events will happen at the same time. So these are mutually exclusive. So mutually exclusive events are those events which cannot both occur at the same time. And non-mutually exclusive are those which can both occur at the same time. So for example, if I tell you return is greater than 10% and return is greater than 15%. So there is a chance that both of these events happen at the same time. Or there is a chance maybe they do not happen at the same time, but there is a chance that they can happen at the same time as well. So they are non-mutually exclusive. So remember these event types as well: mutually exclusive and non-mutually exclusive. So whenever I talk about events, there can be multiple events. Like for example, on a dice, there can be 6 events: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the list of all the events is known as exhaustive events. Exhaustive event means list of all the events which are possible. So if I sum up the probability of all these exhaustive events, that should come out to be 1, because that includes all the possible events which are there, or all the possible events which can be there. So moving on further with probability. So there can be two types of probability: unconditional with respect to calculation, unconditional and conditional. So if I tell you that tell me the probability that stock price will increase, this is the unconditional probability, that is probability for stock price increasing. But if I place a condition, that is tell me the probability that stock price will increase given that inflation has increased, then that will be a conditional probability, that is the probability based on some condition, not the unconditional price increase probability. And for conditional probability, this is the sign that we use. So this sign would mean, if I say probability of A and B, then this would be A given that B has happened. This would mean A given that B has happened. So this sign, read this sign as given that. So probability of A, straight line B would mean that probability of A given that B has happened, and this is known as conditional probability. And if I just ask you for probability of A happening, then that is unconditional probability. So remember the difference between these two. Now the question is that how do you convert a conditional to unconditional, or unconditional to conditional? The formula that is used is given here. Remember this formula or rearrange it, and better would be to remember this. Probability of AB equals probability of A given that B has happened multiplied by probability of B. So remember this formula, we will apply it later. Just for now, remember it or memorize it, that probability of A and B happening equals to is equal to probability of A given that B has happened multiplied by probability of B. Okay, so when we say A and B, there is an event A, there is an event B. So maybe I want to find out probability of A, that is probability of A. Maybe I want to find out probability of B, that is probability of E. Maybe I want to find out probability of A and B, that is both happening at the same time. So that is written as probability AB. This AB means A and B both happening at same time. Or maybe I want to find out probability of either A or B happening. So that is probability A or B. Remember the difference between or and and. When we say and, we mean probability of AB, and that is related to multiplication rule, which would come in later. So when we have and, then we apply multiplication, and when we have or, then we apply addition. And this will come in later. For now, just remember it. So probability of AB would be calculated using multiplication rule, that is A and B happening together. Probability of either A or B happening would be calculated using addition rule. And then you have probability of A given that B has happened, for which we did a formula, which is probability of AB equals probability of A given that B has happened multiplied by probability of B. Moving on. So here is an example. You are told that there is a fund, and there are some funds, and for those funds you are given data for two periods, period 1 and period 2, and total number of funds are 79 plus 71, which is 150. So you have a total of 150 funds or portfolios. From 150 portfolios, some are winner and some are loser. And there are two periods which are given, period 1 and period 2. So you are told that that period 1 winner and period 2 winners were 79, and you are told that probability of a fund winning period 2 after period 1 is 52.7%. And similarly, period 1 winner and period 2 loser, and then period 1 loser, period 2 winner, period 1 loser, period 2 loser. So you have been given this data set. First question is, state the 4 events needed to define the 4 conditional probabilities. So what are 4 conditional probabilities here? So for first conditional probability would be a fund, a portfolio or a fund winning period 2 given that it has won period 1. Another would be probability for fund losing period 2 given that it won period 1. Another can be probability of winning period 2 given that it lost period 1. And last would be probability of losing period 2 given that it lost period 1. So that means there can be 4 possible conditional probabilities. There cannot be any 5th conditional probability. So they ask you to state 4 events needed to define 4 conditional probabilities. So these are the 4 possible exhaustive events for defining these conditional probabilities. Next is state the 4 entries of the table as conditional probability. So this is simple. So if I ask you what is the probability that a fund was period 2 winner and period 1 loser, period 1 winner and period 2 winner and period 1 loser, you take period 2 winner, you take period 1 loser, and probability is already given to you 47.3%. So that means this is the probability of period 2 winning given that fund lost period 1. And then if I want to find out probability of period 2 winner and given that it won period 1, then it is 52.7%. Key point to note is that both periods are not happening at the same time. First period 1 happened and then period 2 happened. And so winning in period 2 would only be possible conditioned on either winning or losing in period 1. So these all are conditional probabilities. Period 1, period 2 winner given that it won period 1 or given that it lost period 1. Both are not happening at the same point of time, and so this is not probability of lose and win. This is probability of win given that it has lost or given that it has won. So there is second question. Third is, are the conditional probabilities empirical, a priori or subjective? So in question they told you that this data is taken based on the performance for past 150 periods. So if it is based on past data, then should it be a priori, empirical, or it should be empirical? So simply empirical probability because it is based on past data. Then they ask you, using information in table, calculate the probability of the event a fund is a loser in both period 1 and period 2, which means now you have to use a multiplication rule, that is you have to find out probability of AB, that is loser in 1 and loser in 2. So probability of the event that fund is a loser in both period 1 and period 2. So what should be the formula? Formula should be probability that it is a loser in 2 given that it was a loser in 1 multiplied by probability of losing in first one. So the formula is probability of AB equals probability of A given that B has happened multiplied by probability of B. So 2 would happen after L1, that's why I have taken lost in 2 given that it has lost in 1. So this is the formula that we can use, and in order to apply this formula we need probability of losing in second given that it lost in 1. So probability of losing in second given that it lost in 1 is 52.7%. So it is given. Then multiplying it by the probability of losing in first one. How do I get it? So this is an unconditional probability, and unconditional is not given here. So I look for more information. It says that note that because 50% of funds are categorized as losers in each period, the unconditional probability that a fund is labeled as a loser is 0.5. So they have already provided the unconditional probability, that is this unconditional probability is 0.5, which means 52.7% multiplied by 50% or 0.5. And when I multiply 26.35%. So that should be the answer, 26.4% or 26.35%. So that means you need to be careful about when you are asked about conditional probability and when you are asked about a multiplication rule or and sign. So this means given that, and this means and. This is conditional, this is based on multiplication rule. So you should be able to identify it. Any words? Yes. Yes, so L1, because L1 is the first period. Period 1 lose is L1. Then period 2 loss is L2. So period 2 would come in after period 1. So it can only be L2 given that L1 has happened. Because once period 1 is over, then you can go into period 2. Otherwise, you cannot go into period 2. Had they been both happening at the same time, then yes, it could have been either. It could have been other way as well. But when we talk about conditional probability, there is a condition that first an event happens and then you go into next event. So your entrance into next event is dependent on first event being completed, let us be a lost or winner. So 2 would come in 2 would come in after 1. So it should be period 2 loser given that it has lost in period 1, or it can be period 2 winner given that it has lost in period 1, because it cannot go to period 2 until and unless period 1 is over. So that's why 2 given that 1 has happened, And that's why as we have one as the second term, first period as the second term, so or we also multiply it by the first one's conditional probability, unconditional probability. In this case, unconditional probability for each period is same, so even if I reverse it, answer would be the same, but in some other cases answer may differ. So this is how we calculate the conditional probabilities. This we have already discussed. We have done example as well. So another example, that is, there is a probability that the probability for inflation rate to increase is 30%. Probability that there will be a boom in economy given that inflation rate increases is 70%, which is a conditional probability. And probability that boom and increase in inflation rate both happen at the same time is to be found. So that again means we have and here, which means we have to find out probability of boom and inflation rise. It should be equal to probability of boom given that inflation has risen multiplied by probability of inflation. So this means boom given that inflation has happened is 70% multiplied by probability of inflation 30%, and you get 21%. So you should be able to interpret the question and apply the formula. So far we have only done one formula, which is this formula or multiplication rule. Now as we discussed, there can be a case in which you are asked about probability of A or B. So far we discussed A and B. There can be OR as well. In that case, you use addition rule. So for example, if you are asked probability of A or B, then you take probability of A, add probability of B, and subtract probability of AB. Why? Because if you have two events A and B, what are the possible options? Option 1 is A happens, B does not happen. Option 2 is B happens, A does not happen. And option 3 is A and B both happens. Or option 3 is A and B both happens. So what will be probability of A or B? For A or B, I will be going with first event and second event. A or B means either A or B happens. So that means I will remove A and B. Why? Because this is not either, this is or B. So let me, this wouldn't explain it, let me explain it through Venn diagram. So this is probability, this is A and this is B and this is AB. So I have to tell probability of A or B, that is either this or this or this, any of these. So when I say take probability of A, I cover this whole region. When I take probability of B, I again cover this whole region. So that means this central region is being double counted. So first I took it with A and then I took it with B. So that's why we remove it by doing minus probability of AB, because it is being double counted. So probability of A or B would be probability of A plus probability of B minus probability of A, B. And here is another example on it. So let's say that probability of placing an order to buy or sell anything, let's say, is 35%. Probability of placing order 2 is 25%. And probability of placing or successfully completing both the orders is 25%. So these are the probabilities for order 1 being executed, order 2 being executed, and both being executed. So now if you are asked what is the probability of order 1 or 2, one of these two at least being executed. So it will be probability of order 1, which is 35%, plus probability of order 2, which is 25%, minus probability of order 1 and 2, which is 25% again, and it should come out to be 35%. So that means when you have to take probability of A or B, you take A plus B minus AB. Remember, you take an addition approach and not multiplication approach. But when you are when you are asked about probability of A and B, then you take multiplication approach. So multiplication would be related to and addition would be related to OR. So it asks me about either of the two order will execute. So it will be probability of order 1 plus 2 minus 1 and 2. Then next question is probability that order 2 executes given that order 1 executes. So which means order 2 executes given that order 1 executes. This will now be calculated using this formula. So if I cross multiply it, it will be probability of AB, that is probability of order 2 and 1 being executed, divided by, if it goes down here, divided by probability of order what is it, order 2 executes given that order 1 executes. So this second variable comes here. So if I cross multiply it again, this second variable needs to come in denominator. So it should be probability of order 1 and not 2, because this second variable needs to be here in denominator. So remember the letters, otherwise there will be chances of error. So probability of order 2 and 1 is 25%. If I say 1 and 2, 2 and 1, same thing, 25%. But if I say 2 given that 1 has happened, or 1 given that 2 has happened, that is a different thing. But if I say 2 1, 1 2, that is the same thing. So 25% divided by probability of order 1, which is 35%. And this comes out to be 71.4%. So that means probability of order 2 being executed given that order 1 executes is 71.4%. So we have used two formulas so far only, well, this one and this one. The key is to remember these formulas, and also not just to remember these formulas but to be able to interpret question to apply these formulas, because that is a bigger challenge. Memorizing these formulas would be easier, but being able to interpret question to apply it would be a bit difficult, or would be a challenge, and practice would make it easier. So any confusion up till here in this? Do this question 5. What is the probability that at least one of the two limit order execute? So it depends on the approach that you are taking. Can be or approach. Answer is 56%. What's your answer? 0.55. How? 0.45 में that is probability of first happening plus probability of second happening minus probability of first happening. So similar should be that is also correct. before closing is 0.45. The probability that second limit order executes before close of trading is 0.2. Probability that two orders both execute before closing. Yeah, 0.45 plus 0.2 minus 0.1. So there can be another approach to it, and remember this as well, because in some cases maybe you have to apply this and you are not able to apply other one. So what is that approach? This approach is that total probability is 1. So if total probability is 1, then that means probability and what are the option? Your option is that you are finding the probability that at least one of the two limit orders execute. So another approach could be that you take an approach in which you say that at least if there can be two options, at least one executes or none executes. So if I go for none being executed, or none of these none of the orders being executed, then what will be the probability of none of these being executed? Probability for first one not being executed would be 0.55, and why? Because probability for its execution is 0.45, so probability for not being executed is 0.55. Probability for second one not being executed is 0.8, and then you multiply, if you multiply 0.8 by 0.55, you get the probability of none of them being executed, and then if you subtract it from 1, your answer would be approximately the same, which is 56% or 0.55 or 0.56 approximately. So this can be another approach to this. This is just to tell you, or just to help you understand, that there can be different approaches to calculation. Sorry, use the one that you use, that is the much straightforward, to go with that. But remember this type of approaches as well, because in some questions maybe you do not have enough data, and maybe then you have to go for 1 minus approach. So remember, if you are not able to find out ample data to do your calculation, then go with 1 minus approach. Maybe that is what is required in that question. So in this case you had the data, so you could do it. Second question: to apply both valuation criteria and financial strength criteria in choosing stocks, the probability that a randomly selected stock meets your valuation criteria is 0.25. So probability of meeting valuation criteria is 0.25. Given that a stock meets your valuation criteria, the probability that it meets your financial criteria is 0.4. Given that it has met valuation criteria, probability of meeting financial criteria is 0.4. So make sure you are able to interpret it right. So given that a stock meets valuation means this V should come in after this line, and F should come in before this symbol. What is the probability that a stock meets both valuation and financial criteria? Valuation and financial criteria, F and V, or V and F. So simply probability should be probability of F, given that V has happened, multiplied by probability of V. So it should be 0.25 into 0.4, which is 0.1. Correct. 10%. So as long as you remember these two formulas, I think you should be able to do any of these questions. Building on that, next is total probability rule. Again, nothing new in it. This is just the addition rule which we just did, a new application of that rule actually. So simply speaking, if I tell you that there is there are two events, A and B. So either what can be the exhaustive list of events? Exhaustive list of event would be A happens, B does not happen. This sign means B does not happen. A happens and B also happens. A does not happen and B happen. So these can be your this can be your exhaustive list of events. That is, A and B both happen. A happens, B does not happen, A does not happen, and B happens, or both don't happen. Yes, so A does not happen and B does not happen. So this can be the exhaustive list. So in any case, or in any scenario or in any event, you can have a list of events which can happen. If you calculate probability of all those events and sum them up, that is known as total probability rule. So for example, if I ask you, this is the exhaustive list of event. If I now ask you, tell me what is the probability that at least A will happen. So probability that at least A will happen would include first option and would include second option. So you take probability of A happening, B not happening, plus probability of A and B happening. This will give you the probability of A happening. This is known as total probability rule. And so this gives you unconditional probability. So this total probability rule is used to calculate unconditional probability. Simply speaking, there is nothing new in it. Same formula, same approach. Only difference is that you are listing down all the outcomes and selecting the one which you need. So there can be multiple approaches to calculation. Similarly, if you are asked what is the probability of B or what is the unconditional probability for B. So unconditional probability for B happening can be calculated using this option and this option. That is either A and B both will happen, or A will not happen and B will happen. There can be no third scenario in which B will happen. So this is used to calculate unconditional probabilities. So here is an example. Probability that cash flow will increase is 40%. Probability of expansion news by the company given that cash flow increases is 70%. Probability of expansion news given that cash flow don't increase is 10%. Total probability of expansion is, so you have to find out total probability of expansion. So how do you get total probability of expansion? Total probability of expansion would mean all the events in which expansion is happening. So either expansion will happen if cash flow increase, so that means probability of expansion and cash flow increasing, or expansion would happen if cash flow doesn't increase. There can only be two scenarios. So if you take both the scenarios probability and sum them up, that should give you the probability of expansion, unconditional probability of expansion. So now how do you calculate probability of E and CF? Using that same formula again, that is probability of E given that CF has happened into probability of CF is the probability of E and CF. So probability of E given that CF has happened, probability of expansion given that cash flow has increased is 70%. So you take 70% multiplied by probability of cash flow increase, which is 40%. You multiply it and then you get probability of E and CF. So this first part is done, which is probability of E, CF. Now next part is that you need probability of expansion and cash flow not increasing. So for that you again use the same formula, expansion and CF not increasing equals to probability of expansion given that CF hasn't increased multiplied by probability of CF not increasing. So again, when you do this, probability of expansion given that CF hasn't increased is 10% multiplied by probability of CF not increasing. Probability of cash flow increase is 40%. So that means probability of cash flow not increasing is 60%. So you multiply it by 60% and you get the second part. And then you add them up and you get the expansion probability, which is 34%. So that means formulas remain be the same, but only their application would differ question from question to question. So as long as you are able to interpret question and able to analyze what is being asked, you should be able to do the question. So that is about basic probability calculations. Moving on, when we discuss mean, we discussed weighted average mean. In weighted average mean, we use weighted average mean to calculate portfolio return. So in that case, we had different variables and different variables had different weights. And so we took a weighted average by multiplying respective weights with the returns. Similarly, instead of having weights, you may have probabilities. So maybe you are trying to calculate expected value of, let's say, EPS. So there is a chance that EPS can be 2.6. There is a chance it can be 2.2. There is a chance it can be 2. And each chance has different probability. So simply you can also, just like you calculate weighted average in portfolio return, similarly you can also calculate probability weighted average. Probability weighted average would mean that you multiply each value with its probability and then you sum them up. So that will be probability weighted average. You know, if there is 15% chance of 2.6, there is 45% chance of 2.5, there is 24% 2.2, 16% 2. So what is the overall expected value? Overall expected value would be probability weighted average. 0.15 into 2.6, 0.45 into 2.5, 0.24 into 2.2 and so on. Any problem so far? So that means expected value can be found using this formula, which is probability weighted average. This is known as expected value. Now moving on, when we did calculation for variance or standard deviation, we calculated variance using a formula x minus x bar squared, and then we summed up all the observations and then we divided it by n for population and n minus 1 for sample. Here we have probabilities, we do not have frequencies. So I do not have 2.6 coming up 10 times, 15 times. I have it coming up 15% of the times. So as I do not have frequency, this n gets removed because there is no n. Yes, so there is no n, there is no frequency, so it gets removed. But then how do I adjust for these probabilities? So I adjust for these probabilities by multiplying it by respective probability. So this is how formula changes. So how do I do this? So I make additional columns here. So this is EPS, I know mean. So I do x minus x bar. X minus x bar would be 2.6 minus 2.4, 2.5 minus 2.4, 2.2 minus 2.4, 2 minus 2.4, and then I take squares. So 2.2 squared, 0.1 squared, and 0.484. First one is 2.2, right? 2.6, oh, sorry, 0.2. 0.2 squared, 0.04, then 0.01, then 0.04 again. Why positive? Because minus into minus becomes positive. Then 0.16. This is x minus x bar squared. And then next step would be that I multiply, instead of just summing them up and dividing it by n, I multiply them by their respective probabilities. So 15%, 45%, 24% and 16%. I multiply them by their probabilities and then I will get answer for this multiplication, and then I sum them up and that will be the variance. So if I have to do this, it will be 0.15 into 0.04, which is 0.006, and then it is 0.45 multiplied by 0.01, which is 0.0045, and then 0.24 multiplied by 0.04, which is 0.0096, and then 0.16 multiplied by 0.16, which is 0.0256, and I sum them up and that will give me the variance. And if I want to calculate a standard deviation, I will calculate a standard deviation by it comes out to be approximately 4.57%. And if I want to calculate a standard deviation, I calculate a standard deviation by taking its square root, which is 21.4% approximately. Any problem so far? Okay, so this is how you calculate variance, but then again you can calculate it using the using your calculator. And how do you calculate it using calculator? So you go into your data register again, second data, second 7 is second data, then you clear it, second clear work, and then you start entering numbers. So x01 is 2.6, so 2.6 enter, then down arrow key. Now you see y01, so now you have a two series of data, so you need to input both. So x will be 2.6, y will be 15. Put y as 15, not 0.15, put it as 15. Then moving on, x02 2.5 and y02 45. Then x02 x03 2.2, y03 24. Then x04 2 and y04 16. So your sum of all the y's should become 100. If sum of y's do not become 100, it will give you an error. So sum of y's should be 100 for it to be processed. So you have plugged in the data, then you do second stat. You would see 1-5 on your screen. Now press down arrow key. You see n as 100 because I have put in 100 of the frequency. You see x bar as 2.36, which is the expected value or weighted average. You see sample standard deviation as 0.21, and you see population standard deviation as 0.21. And if you take its square, it will be 4.43%, which is your variance. And similarly, if you take a square of sample standard deviation, it will be 4.5%, which is your variance. So this is how you can get variance or standard deviation from the calculator. Answer should be same in both the scenarios. And in exam, do it using calculator. That is 4.47% because I have rounded off these decimals, so that's why you are seeing it as 0.05. Otherwise, answer is same. Moving on, next is covariance and correlation. So before that, there is just an example. Let's go through this as well. So you have an EPS of 2.34. You are told that EPS can be 2.6 in future, or can be 2.45, or can be 2.2, or can be 2. And you are told that if interest rates decline, then in next period there is a 25% chance of EPS being 2.6. And if interest rate decline, there is a 75% chance of EPS being 2.45. If interest rates are stable, there is a 60% chance of EPS being 2.2, and there is a 40% chance of EPS being 2. And you have to find out expected value. How do you find out expected value? Simply by taking probability weighted average. So first you need to calculate probabilities of these four nodes. How do you calculate it? Probability of declining rate 0.6. Then next probability of this EPS is 0.25. So that means probability of reaching out till this node is 0.6 into 0.25. Then probability of reaching out to this node is 0.6 into 0.75. Probability of reaching to this node is 0.4 into 0.6, and probability of reaching to this node is 0.4 into 0.4. So you have probabilities, you have values, you take probability weighted average, and that is known as expected value, or that is the expected EPS. Any problem so far? Okay, moving on further into stats. Expected EPS comes out to be 2.34. Okay, moving on into further into stats. There are two terms that you will come across, which are covariance and correlation. This covariance and correlation tells you the relationship between two variables like A and B. So for example, if I tell you that A is a share of one company and B is the share of another company. And if you want to find out their relationship, then covariance and correlation helps you analyze help you analyze that. So they both tell the relationship. The difference is that covariance can range from minus infinity to positive infinity. So covariance can be any number. So as it can be any number, it is hard to interpret it. You can compare one covariance with another, but it is hard to interpret. So if I tell you covariance is 5, you wouldn't know what does that 5 actually mean. You know both move in same direction, but what does it actually mean, you wouldn't know it. While correlation ranges from 0 to 1, it is a linear estimate. It assumes a linear relationship between two variables, and based on that it ranges from 0 to 1 or minus 1 to 1. So 0 to 1 can be positive, 0 to positive 1, or can be 0 to minus 1. So, or I would say, what I would say is minus 1 to 1. Minus 1 means that two variables are perfectly negatively correlated. Perfectly negatively correlated. And 1 means that they are perfectly positively correlated. Minus 1 would mean that if asset A goes up 5%, B will go down 5%. And perfect correlation would mean that if A goes up by 5%, B will go up by 5%. And 0 would mean that there is no correlation. They both move in different direction. A can be 5, B can be 5, A can be 5, B can be 10. There is no particular relation between these two. And then if you go throughout the range, it will keep on changing. So 0.5 would be a stronger relation, 0.75 would be even stronger, and 1 would be strongest. So this is how correlation is interpreted. Now question is that how do you actually calculate it? So formula for correlation is, the symbol for correlation is this is the symbol for correlation, and formula is covariance of A and B divided by standard deviation of A multiplied by standard deviation of B. So covariance AB divided by standard deviation of A into standard deviation of B gives you correlation. And then if you want to change the formula or want to calculate covariance of AB equals correlation into standard deviation of A into standard deviation of B. Any problem so far up till here? Okay, so we have discussed standard deviation, we have discussed variance, we have discussed covariance and correlation. Now let's say that you have two stocks A and B. A has a risk, which is a standard deviation. B has a risk, which is a standard deviation. If I combine A and B, then their risk characteristics will change. That is, this portfolio will have different risk profile. How? Because this portfolio's risk will be dependent on the relationship between A and B. So if A and B have negative relationship, risk will be reduced. If they have weak relationship, risk will be reduced. That means if I combine these two, then I will be able to reduce risk of overall portfolio. This means when I calculate risk of portfolio, or when I calculate standard deviation of portfolio, I cannot just simply add these two. I need to account for their relation as well. If relation is weak, risk will be low. If relation is strong, risk will be high. So then how do I calculate portfolio standard deviation? So for calculating portfolio variance or standard deviation, you have a different formula. So let's say if you have a portfolio in which there are only two stocks, A and B, then formula would be variance of stock A multiplied by weight squared plus variance of stock B multiplied by weight squared, weight squared plus 2 into weight 1 into weight 2 into covariance of A and B. This is the formula for variance of two stock portfolio. For 3, it will formula will increase. You will have much more combination. For 4, it will increase. But for in your course, you need to remember only this. This is the formula for variance of portfolio. If you want to calculate a standard deviation of portfolio, you can simply take square root of variance. Or let's say that you do not have covariance, but instead you have correlation. So you can use correlation to calculate covariance. So then you can replace this covariance with correlation. How? You know that covariance of AB equals to correlation of AB multiplied by standard deviation of A multiplied by standard deviation of B. So this covariance AB can be replaced by correlation into standard deviation of A into standard deviation of B. This is how you calculate variance of portfolio. This is a very important formula. Make sure you memorize it and remember it. This will be used in level 2, level 3 and in level 1, all 3 levels. So this formula and this covariance can be changed to correlation. If you change it to correlation, then this will be the formula. Now question is that how do you calculate covariance for probability related questions? So far we if we have so we did not do covariance earlier. Okay, so if let's say that you have a portfolio and of A and B, or you have a two different portfolios A and B, and you want to find out their covariance. So how do you find that out, or what is the formula that you should use? So simply speaking, formula is that first you find out mean of A or expected value of A, then you find out mean of B or expected value of B. So let's say mean of A in this case would be 0.15 multiplied by 20, because there is a 15% chance of 20% return. Then 0.6 multiplied by 15, and then 0.25 multiplied by 4. And you multiply these three, you will get mean of A, probability weighted average or expected value of A, and that would come out to be 0.15 into 20 plus 0.6 into 15 plus 0.25 into 4. This comes out to be 13%. So expected value of A is 13%. Then you find out expected value of B, which is its return multiplied by probability. So 40 into 0.15 plus 20 into 0.6 plus 0 into 0.5, which 0.25, which is 0. So which means 18%. So expected value of A is 13%, expected value of B is 18%. Now you calculate the covariance. How do you calculate covariance? Again, you take deviations first, that is A minus A bar and B minus B bar. So A minus A bar, and you multiply it by B minus B bar. So A minus A bar, for example, for first scenario, and finally you will multiply it by probability of that particular event. So first I take this event, which is 15% chance. So 15% chance of what? A minus A bar deviation is A minus A bar, which is 20 minus 13, multiplied by B minus B bar, which is, for this 15%, B has a return of 40. So 40 minus 18, which is 22%. Then I take second event, I add second event to it, which is 60%, and I do the same. 15 minus 13 multiplied by 20 minus 18. And then I take third event and I do the same, which is 4 minus 13 multiplied by 0 minus 18. And this gives you the covariance. So while maybe it is not so much testable, but still remember it, might be, you may see it in questions. So this is, I don't think this can be done by financial calculator. So this is something that you will have to do by yourself. अगर probability नहीं है then you will divide it by n, just like to do it in standard deviation and variance. So expected value can be found using calculator, that is same method, but for covariance you will have to do it on your own. Okay, so moving on, Bayes formula. Bayes formula, I wouldn't spend any time into it because it is the same as conditional probability being explained in another way. So far we did questions or did a formula in which probability of AB used to be probability of A given that B has happened multiplied by probability of B. But now let's say that if I have to calculate a conditional probability with another conditional probability, then what is the formula that I should use? So then this is the formula which is used. That is probability of A given that B has happened equals probability of B given that A has happened divided by probability of A multiplied by probability of B. So what you do is if you have to calculate A given that B has happened, you take its opposite, which is B given that A has happened. You divide it by the second one, which is A, probability of A, and multiply it by the first one, and it will give you probability of A given that B has happened. This is Bayes formula. It is used when a new information has come in or new information is received and you want to see that what will be the return based on new information, or you want to see what will be the impact given that new information has come in. In this case, maybe you are not given unconditional probability and maybe you have to calculate unconditional probability for this variable at times, that is probability for news coming in. So remember this formula as well, and this brings us to the last topic, which is multiplication rule and factorial. So starting with factorial. So what is factorial? Let's say that there are 4 analysts and there are 4 industries, and I have to assign each analyst a industry. So let's say analysts are 1, 2, 3, 4 and industry is A, B, C, D. So I can assign A to 1 or I can assign A to 2, A to 3, A to 4. So there are multiple ways in which these industries can be assigned to these analysts. But each analyst will get one industry. So if I want to ask you, or if I ask you what are the number of ways in which, or possible number of ways in which these can be assigned, or in which these industries can be assigned to analysts, those number of ways are known as factorial. So if I ask you that you have to assign 4 industries to 4 analysts, what are the number of possible ways in which that can be done? It will be 4 factorial. So 4 factorial will tell you that what are the number of ways in which these can be assigned. Any problem so far? Okay, this is simple factorial. Then there is combination. So for example, if I tell you that there are 4 industries and they have to be assigned to 3 analysts. So that means not all of these 4 will be assigned, only 3 will be assigned. So either ABC will be assigned, or BCD, or maybe ACD, or some combination of 3 of these. So if I ask you that in how many ways can you assign these 4 to these 3 analysts, not caring about what 1 gets, what 2 gets, what 3 gets, that is, order does not matter. Order doesn't matter means that I don't care if 1 is getting A, B, C, D, whatever, 2 is getting A, B, C, D, or 3 is getting A, B, C, D. Just tell me if from 4 I have to assign 3, then how many ways can I select 3 from 4? So this is primarily a selection. This factorial was arrangement, that is, you are arranging within 1, 2, 3 within analyst. One can get A, one can get D, one can get B, two can get B. This factorial was arrangement. Now I am talking about selection, not arrangement. So when we talk about selection, that is known as combination. So how do you do this? Formula is NCR. N is total number of options available, 4. R is number of selections being made. So from these 4, you are selecting 3. So this will be the number of ways. 4CR would be 4C3 would be the number of ways in which you select from these 3 industries from these 4. And on your calculator, you first press 4, then you press second and plus sign, which is NCR, and then you press 3, and then you press equal to. So it will tell you 4. That means in 4 ways you can select 3 industries from 4 industries. Now how you allocate it, that is a different story. That is not a concern here. Only selection is a concern. So remember, when we talk about factorial, only arrangement is a concern. When we talk about combination, only selection is a concern. Any problem so far? Then if I ask you that you have to select 3 from these 4, tell me about the number of ways in which you can select, and then also tell me the number of ways in which I can arrange industries between these 3. That means I am telling you that order matters. That is, also tell me if one is getting A, then that is one way of doing it. If one is getting B, that is another way of doing it. So take into account those as well. So that means I am talking about selection plus arrangement. So when we say selection plus arrangement, that is known as permutation. Permutation is selection plus arrangement, and so we use the formula NPR, or in this case it will be 4P3. So this is permutation, 4P3. So on your calculator you do second and then minus sign and then 3. It will be 24. So permutation means selection plus arrangement. Apart from combination and permutation, there is another basic concept, not as technical as this one, which is labeling. Labeling is when you are assigning labels to different stocks or different variables or assets. So let's say I tell you that there is a portfolio consists of 8 stocks. The goal is to designate 4 stock as long term, that is give this label to 4. Designate 3 as short term, give this label to 3, and designate 1 as sell, that is give this label to 1. So how do you decide number of ways? You will use labeling formula. Labeling formula is N factorial, that is total number of stocks, divided by first label being assigned to whatever, second and third or whatever. So here you have 8 stocks, so it becomes 8 factorial. Then you are assigning long term hold to 4 stocks, so it becomes 4 factorial. You are assigning short term hold to 3 stocks, so it is 3 factorial, and you are assigning sell to 1 stock, so it is 1 factorial. And how do you do it in your calculator? So in your calculator you have a button for x factorial on top of multiplication button. So you do press 8, then you press second, and then you press this multiplication button, and it gives you 8 factorial. And then similarly you do it for 4, 3 and 1, divide them, multiply them, and then you get the answer. This is labeling. With respect to combination and permutation, remember, if order of selection doesn't matter, you go for combination, that is only selection. If order of selection matters, then that means it is selection plus arrangement, and so you go for permutation. So this is about this reading on statistics. So both of these readings are on statistics, probability concepts, and others. Let's